I think one of the very first things that's so remarkable from one of our first conversations is it brought that so much to the point in my experience that the moment that I feel, that I truly feel this island of peace and nourishment and safety inside, the moment that I truly am in this kind of essence, it gives birth immediately to exactly the other side. So it's not, to some extent, it's not, I'm here and now I add a little bit of something else, but it's like my nervous system, my instinct, my own inner longing leads me into the most extreme opposite. It's like one cell knows about the most opposite cell. And I was feeling like my instincts flow into the biggest risk in order to rest there as well. So to some extent, all of our I'm on the path and traveling and somebody is needing to guide me, etc., all of that somehow is created by me not fully going with myself, not immediately flowing with my instincts. And the moment that I'm just in this timeless knowledge in my nervous system of both opposite poles, needing each other, giving birth to each other, knowing each other deeply, being one and each other, the moment all of that falls away, it's like then I can learn in a teaching, then I can have a guru, then I can have a student, then I can, whatever. But it's like, I know about the expansion of the universe. And that's such a deep lesson for me around what safety is to our inner knowledge, because it's not that somebody is giving me a wellness massage, but it might be that. But the core is not something that you can see with your mind. It's something that comes from, I stay on the point of the moment. And this moment always is ready to kill you. I mean, everything else, it's like I want to know death in every moment in order to feel safe every moment. What a fake kind of pseudo peace. My instincts know. My mind is like, oh wow, the others die, I don't. And my instincts freak out for good reasons. What a shabby illusion. How dangerous to be that much off. So I very much feel every tradition, every guru, every relationship dynamics with the outer world being an externalization of an inner happening that somehow longs for not being happening in that way anymore. There is like an unlearning as potential that is embedded in every relationship or ongoing pattern or attachment between inner and outer world. I feel it like that, which doesn't make it wrong, quite the opposite, brilliant, but still, I can't listen to the outer world with wider ears than to my inner world in all of that, because that is where it matters. That it is what it comes down to. That is the creatrix. And that's such a radical self-empowerment. And that's so beautiful. And at the same time, the forces from the outer world that somehow I want to put onto my nervous system in order to be safe from my own patterns, they are also brutal. So it also gives a story to the forces that we are and that we do not know anything about in this culture, and us wanting to break free and then really going into danger. I understand that people do everything in order to be saved from themselves, just because this is what I deeply know. When I go into the core of my fear, I'm so afraid of myself for good reasons. And I'm the only one who saves me over and over again. And it is washing suffering out of my nervous system, but at the same time, it's on the way, it's suffering. Again and again, I meet the same substance. But even me staying on the point of the suffering makes me less suffer than not wanting to suffer.
I am curious about how many people you, Elan, meet in your day-to-day life who would relate, resonate, even be attracted, or even find that you're a like-minded person and feel this kinship with you based on what you have just been saying. Like, how many people do you meet who will agree and feel the same way about you, as feel the same way as you about fear and risk and suffering and pain and what it takes to wash it out?
It's so interesting because I think there are more people than I know that there are with this kind of resonance, because I myself have been so shy with sharing. I was like, who would want that? Who would want this amount of good news? And who would want this amount of bad news? And who could take me serious? And just as a footnote, I'm super, super curious about talking with you about the fields and concepts of insanity versus sanity when it comes to spiritual unfolding or development, or an own inner evolution that somehow happens. Because the first time I really knew, okay, something incredibly real is happening in me, incredibly powerful, and at the same time, incredibly crazy when I look with any kind of official eyes onto myself. So I myself, I think also out of instincts around going into a cocoon or going into a super focus, laser focus with myself and with my own path, but also out of shyness and conditioning and culture, I was very, very private with everything that I could say that I started seeing. And now when I started sharing a little bit in my own language, I call it somatic mysticism, because for me it really comes from re-embodying, reincarnating, and the mystic insights are like it's like the universe of visions or images, or the universe that is created as the reflection of the way back in my nervous system. I can't, I think, put it better into words than that. It's like unlearning the shutdown, reawakening again as a physiological process in the nervous system. And it's almost like this wind of this inner movement creates this, in the space that is no space, creates this myriads of images. So it's like it's only my mysticism, and at the same time it's a timeless phenomenon. But everybody would create an own world that exists and doesn't exist, an own world of true mysticism that can't be about truth. It's just happening. And when I started sharing just a little bit, I got so much beauty and curiosity and also resonance. It's like when you cut your spirituality from this world, you kind of create a world that would get along without spirituality, and that's just not possible. I mean, a thing like that doesn't exist. And the beauty and the resonance from people reading or listening to my words or watching this video was a lot about, wow, it makes sense. This is what I'm experiencing. I know it from this. Yes, and I'm curious about that. So there was a lot of immediate familiarity, which deeply calmed me down and deeply nourished me and deeply made it safer for me to share without being so stuck in my, I don't know, good girl conditioning, woman conditioning. I have no idea, but a lot of conditioning around shyness of better not come from there. And another thing, I think that's still a challenge, but it's burned and feels very good is if you share, you might be sharing in words. And I think you have to let go of the potential of language to manipulate. Because with language, you can always manipulate in order to make things look pretty. And if you attach to that, it's not the thing. So it's a lot about death, and it's a lot about shadow, and it's a lot about bliss. And if you avoid the shadow and the death in order to go to the bliss, it's lost. So I think this is a learning path for me.
So you would say that there are more people than you could have thought who will walk towards the shadow, the death, the risk, the fear. Yes?
Okay. I think eventually everybody will.
That they would choose that they would walk to the risk with you. That when you speak of risk and fear and death, that they would turn away from the glow of bliss and turn and walk with you towards the unknown, towards the edge. That there are more people than you imagine who would actually walk towards uncertainty.
Yes, I would say that. And I would say that if somebody doesn't, it is because I am not wise and awake enough. I have to oversee a stone on this or that path in order to lose somebody there. And it's not about me guiding, but it is about, I deeply believe that eventually all of our instincts lead towards truth. And if somebody doesn't tend to go there or follow this inner longing or calling, then because the outer world hasn't provided the best circumstances. And when I'm in the field, or you are in the field, or whoever, we have to provide the best circumstances, period. That's our job.
But the inner world, the inner seer, would have to have their eyes open enough, would have to have the cognizant power to recognize, to receive the input through their sense organs in order to recognize circumstances, external circumstances for what they are, without projecting or transferring onto them mentalized images that may be the result of previous undigested, unprocessed thought, feelings. So this would be very important, that even though the external world is providing the most perfect, opportune circumstances, including the guide and everything about that guide, that the traveler may not be able to see truly those circumstances for what they are, underneath any potential interference or projection. So in my culture, there would be a great emphasis, which is the Indian culture and the yogic sciences that are born and that are maintained within that framework. There would be a great emphasis, there is an emphasis on the purification of the sense organs of perception, of action, the purification of the mind, the role, the function of the mind as a bridge, able to relay and respond all of that information. And there would be a great emphasis on the maintenance of these interactions between what we are perceiving, how we then process and digest that, and then how we would respond accordingly. That would therefore put great responsibility, not so much on the guide and not so much on the external circumstances, but on the being who is fully equipped by nature to be responding optimally in order to be a co-creator, not just an observer, but a co-creating, a participating observer with the external circumstances.